You're listening to Built to Convert, the podcast where growth-minded marketers, founders, and creators come to level up. No hype, no guesswork, just bold insights that drive results. Let's go.
Welcome to Built to Convert, the podcast where we explore how strategy, analytics, and creativity come together to drive meaningful growth. I'm your host, Tyler Lane, founder of Session Interactive. Each episode, we sit down with marketers, founders, and operators who are building real momentum inside today's most interesting companies. Today, we're diving into the intersection of growth strategy, messaging clarity, and mission-driven business building. This episode is brought to you by Session Interactive, the performance marketing agency for brands that are serious about SEO, paid search, and analytics. If your internal team needs expert horsepower or your strategy could use sharper insights, we help B2B and SaaS brands drive measurable revenue with less guesswork. Learn more at sessioninteractive.com. All right, today's guest is Trey Sheneman. I was going to mispronounce that last name. Founder of Herald and creator of Compass Method, a strategic framework helping mission-centered businesses scale with clarity and purpose. Trey has worked with leading brands like John Maxwell and Dave Ramsey, guiding leaders to align their messaging, go-to-market strategy, and customer experience. In this conversation, we'll explore the steps to building predictable growth, discipline of channel focus, and how to integrate AI without losing authenticity or values. Trey, good to see you. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for joining.
Tyler, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to maybe hopefully add some value here to your listenership. As somebody who's also in the podcasting space myself, I can always appreciate people taking the time to add value to others by either learning from their own experiences, sharing what they know. I think it's a huge thing that we get to do in this life as a way to leave a legacy for ourselves. So kudos to you and your team for standing this up, and I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and shout out to Brandon O'Connor who introduced us. Great guy. We'll make sure to tag him in any social posts here on out.
And he like me has an incredible head of hair. We're both bald.
You guys, you guys are, shout out to the bald community out there. I feel like I might be losing my hair here, but you can rock it. You can, Brandon. I think you guys make it work. We can make it work. Trey, let's transition here. I always loved starting about. I loved reading and hearing about your story. You've gone from going in debt, seminary school. Talk about that a little bit, because I think really cool, compelling, motivational tale, if you will.
Yeah. So I wasn't always in marketing. Marketing kind of found me. I didn't really find it, is what I would say. I went to undergrad and graduate school thinking I was going to work in Christian ministry. I have a master's degree in Christian ministry. Out of seminary, grad school, I went on staff at a large Christian school in Metro Atlanta, had 1,000 students. I met my wife there. She was a middle school teacher, was there for 4 years. Coached every sport you can imagine, worked 70-hour weeks every week for 4 years and loved it. Like, I just thought that's what I was supposed to do with my life. But during that fourth year, my wife got pregnant, and she came to me and said, "Hey, we're expecting a baby," which is a blessing. And I don't think I want to go back to work, after. And so I had this major literal jokingly, as we say in the South, the come to Jesus moment of like, Jesus, we got to have her income. So I don't really know what we're going to do, because you guys can imagine this was in, 2005 to 2009 timeframe. I think I was making $27,000 or $28,000 a year. It's just not a lot of money. And so, one of the things that I did, I ended up going to the Barnes and Noble and going into the business book section and trying to figure out ways to make money online. I just had this idea of I'm going to figure out how to make money online. It's like internet marketing for dummies. I picked that one up. I'm going through this stuff, and I find this book on building affiliate funnels. And I read it in a weekend. And by the end of the next week, I'd bought a domain and set up my first affiliate funnel. And within a week, it had made a sell. And I kind of had this thing going. Well, what I didn't know was through a crazy series of events, by the end of that next school year, yes, our son, his name's Bear, ended up being born in December of that school year. So my wife did not go back to work after December. But both of our jobs ended up going away by the end of that school year. This was right during the bubble bursting of 2008, 2009. People stopped paying for private school. The school went through a reduction in force. We were the young ones that they thought could land on their feet. And so the unfortunate thing is between school loans and just living above our means, we did not know how to handle money at that age or stage of life. And so my wife didn't really know. I had never really shared, but I was not doing well with our money too. And so when we lose our jobs, we ended up being $94,000 in debt, not counting our mortgage and on food stamps. And a family in our church was paying our mortgage for us so we could stay in our house with our newborn. And it's a pretty humbling experience when you have to have all of that conversation and literally go to the food stamps line. And we're in the food stamps line and my wife's kind of going like, well, what options do we have? Because if you don't know the way the education system works, at least where I was, it's a contract driven business. And so like we lost our jobs in May. The contracts had gone out in March. And so when we lost our jobs in May, there weren't other contracts for us to go and chase down. So whether we got back into school the next school year or not, we were going to have a year without having a jobs in Christian education. So we're both kind of looking at each other like, what can we do? And so she's kind of going like, this is what we do. And so, and actually I want to clarify something. She was pregnant when we lost, she had the baby the year that we were out. We lost our jobs the year before. So anyways, she gets a receptionist job, at 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant. And I'm trying to do this affiliate thing that I just figured out online. And I'm selling rainbow vacuum cleaners door to door, trying to build these internet funnels. And it was just it was a gritty experience, Tyler. I don't really know, the way to say it. It was like, sometimes you just got to do the work. You got to white knuckle it. Like you just got to do the work. And for me, to 2010 till 2018, 64 hours in a week was the least amount I worked for 7.5 years. Now, there's plenty of other areas of my life that suffered because of that. Like, being frank with you, like my ability to be a great dad and a great husband were not in alignment at that point in my life because I was so singularly focused on getting us out of debt and getting us to the next stage. But the crazy thing was the internet marketing thing turned out to be a door I would have never opened for myself unless God himself hadn't forced us into that situation, and it changed our lives. It really did. Those first couple of years were hard. The sprint version of that story is that first year I was kind of on my own, and then a friend of mine and his father-in-law were like, hey, we want to take a bet on you and put you on a retainer, or, kind of a retainer 1099 kind of a thing to see if you could do it for our firm. It went really well. They tripled in size that year, and I was kind of like, wait a second, I'm halfway decent at this. That was like my first validation. That next year they put $500,000 into an account and became my partners. And we started our first marketing agency together in 2011 called Pipeline, still in existence to this day. 3 years later after that, I had a kind of what I would call a blue chip agency in Atlanta and wanted to hire a VP of strategy. They headhunted me away from Pipeline. I had a little mini exit that year, kind of got like $30,000, $40,000 for my equity on the way by. And we sold our house that year and moved into a 1-bedroom apartment, just the three of us. When all that happened, we downsized. And between the exit, selling the house, and then the crazy thing, I went on an episode of Wheel of Fortune that same year and won my episode and won $20,000. So you add it all up and it got us out of debt. It was like the crazy situation, right? So anyways, agency for 3 years after that. And then the crazy thing was, one of those agency deals by 2017 ended up introducing us to the Maxwell brand and ended up deciding it was time to kind of put the agency experience on the shelf, and got a chance to go client side and was able to go client side from 2017 to 2023, work all the way up to the CMO level, on the client side. And just now as a consultant, like a private consultant running my own business, where we essentially teach companies how to think like agencies, is what I say, inside of their companies, and have the nimbleness, the agility of an agency. Like, this business was the dream in my heart in the early days of when I first started thinking about internet marketing, started to find some wins. And it's not lost on me, this crazy snake journey that we've been on of just one step after the other. And a lot of faith, don't get me wrong, but a lot of hard work, man, a lot of hard work. So anyways.
Great. What an awesome journey. What a cool story too. I imagine too, the uncertainty too, with your wife being pregnant. You're like, hey, I'm going to start this like affiliate thing. She's like, what? I remember like articulating what affiliate was to people. It's like kind of articulating like, what does Tyler do? What does Trey do to layman's? They're like, brochures or something like that. I think affiliate is even more complex in certain cases. Yeah. It's not that complex, but and good for you to do that, because I imagine there was some skepticism, some trepidation from your wife. You're like, what is this? But she knew your work ethic already. You had already been crushing it. And I think you put your mind to something, and you were just you're not gonna fail.
Yeah, I think my wife lives from a lot of hope, right? A lot of hope and a lot of faith that things are going to get better. even when they're hard. And I think in some ways, both of us had pretty challenging things before we got together as a couple, just in our upbringing and such. So there's a resilience that was inside of us that got really tested in those years. Like it got really put to the test. And then, the kind of the other part of our story is when Bear, our son, was born, he's been medically challenged his entire life. Like, all kids are special. If you have children, they're all special, but Bear is unique in that he's a one of one medically. Like it's a defined thing now by multiple hospitals, that his unique set of things they've never seen before. And so in some ways that can be a pretty isolating thing to experience too, not just for him, but being the parents of him. And when you meet other people and they can't really relate because they don't know. And that's not a judgment thing on other people. Everybody, it's not that people lack empathy or they're not trying to relate. It's just that they can't though. Yeah. Like until you meet other unique kids that have, like, I just recently met a guy and he's like, when he said he could relate and I heard a story, I'm like, oh, he can relate. It's like, and so there is a little bit of an island syndrome that happens in your mind where, quite frankly, buddy, like we lacked a lot of community in our life for a long time because we felt isolated by those conditions. And our natural response was actually to isolate maybe a little more unnecessarily, which meant it opened up a lot of hours to work though. So, I mean, I worked a lot, and I'm not saying that's great or healthy, but it was our experience. And if you connect the dots, the early days of being in Christian education, because I was coaching so much, I was used to working 70 hours a week. Anyways, I was just now working 70 hours a week at a completely different hourly rate than I was as a teacher. And I was seeing what that was doing. And I was going like, wow, this is crazy.
Trey, talk about those lessons from Maxwell and Ramsey.
Yeah.
Only the financial lessons, right? They're stewards of quality financial practices for families and individuals and have helped millions. But talk to me, I guess, about that perhaps, but also about kind of leaving the agency world, going client side, and now reverting back to it, that entrepreneurial spirit. What lessons do you take from those experiences that you stay with you today?
Yeah, I would say the three big lessons I have learned that I try and embody and espouse every day inside of Herald now. The first one was the lesson that I learned making the shift out of agency into client side work. And the lesson was first be a specialist, then be a generalist. So when the right opportunity comes, you can be a capitalist. And what I mean by that is there are some things that are going to come really, really, really natural to you, and you shouldn't force it. Like if you're really good at that naturally, lean in on that and become a really good specialist at it. But then from there, think about being T-shaped, right? Like the trunk of your T is your specialty area. Then the branches of your T become those add-on skills that you can do that make you more marketable. And what I mean by being a capitalist is more of the sense of the word opportunist than it is making money. But the cool thing is when you take advantage of opportunities, the money comes. And so that really was what jettisoned me into the Maxwell deal, was having built the specialty and the generalness of being a kind of jack of all trades that they needed because it was a director role. And then, when I get to Maxwell, the time frame that I was there, the most pressing thing I learned while I was in there is literally looking at me going, don't talk, do. Like, just do it. What do you want to try? Like, do it. Like, let's learn by doing. And John has this well-known quote of the more you do, the more you fail, the more you fail, the more you learn, the more you learn, the more you grow. And it's like this cyclical thing of doing, failing, learning, growing, doing, failing, learning, growing. And because I had moved out of agency world where there was team around me and they were pushing all the buttons, and I was moved into client side, no team. I'm the director, which really meant you do all of it. And that kind of level of organization. Fair. I was having to do SEO for the first time and run my own ads and all the things, right? Like you get a lot of a different kind of experience when you're tactically pushing buttons. And then at the Ramsey, what I took away from my time at Ramsey that I think people can learn from is like, that's a 1,000-person organization, multiple divisions, in some ways, a lot of bureaucracy, just because of scale and size, right? Like there's a lot of process that you have to go through there, which I tend to be a little bit more of a gunslinger. But that being said, the early days at Ramsey, it's a Jim Collins quote, but I just saw this organization really work it out, which is that business moves at the speed of trust. Like there was a real relational side to how Ramsey moved and worked and decisions were made that I had never experienced in any agency with any client in any prior job. And I would say in Herald now, us espousing that business moves at the speed of trust, because we focus on purpose-driven, kind of mission-driven, sort of double bottom line brands is kind of our target audience now. People where like, yeah, they make a buck, but then they do something with the buck is kind of the way I would say it. There's a lot of trust that has to be extended both ways when you work with businesses like that. Not that all businesses don't have a need for trust. Anyways, it feels like all those lessons I was learning along the way were preparing me for the next lesson that I needed to learn to ultimately get to this spot that I'm in my career now, where we're able to, uniquely serve a very specific niche within entrepreneurship, both those that are in startup and scale up, but that they are coming from a values position. They're coming from a mission, purpose over everything kind of a position, which is kind of how we are as a company. And, quite frankly, for the most part to this point, they've been fans of some of these brands that I worked for. And then they hear like, wait, you were the guy that ran that campaign that I loved, or that. It's like, so like our own ability to grow has kind of come from how I just stewarded the other opportunities up until this point. Cause it's 100% inbound for us. Like I have a podcast as well and I write on LinkedIn, but we don't run ads. I'm not speaking on stages. We don't go to events. It's none of that stuff. It's just, they just show up or somebody a client refers them, as I'm sure you've experienced as well, Tyler. So I would say those three lessons, like specialty, be specialist, generalist, capitalist, learn doing is one of the greatest teachers. And then trust as like the unequalizing force in being able to really move things forward when people genuinely believe they can trust you and you do what you say you're going to do. I think those are the differentiators we try and carry right now at Herald.
I love that. There's so many great takeaways there, Trey. I mean, a couple of things that come up for me is that like that Maxwell piece around like the fail forward mentality, just like, and that correlates obviously to learn by doing. I mean, yeah, you read a book on affiliate stuff, but you needed to take, and that's a lot of in our space, like a lot of open source content, a lot of blogs, a lot of like how to do stuff, but like get it, like start it, like actually be a practitioner. I think so many people are reading things and theorizing on certain things, but you're putting into action. And I think that's where you and I can relate to, is being practitioners and being, being exposed to a lot of different channels and methodologies, and then creating our own methodology is really important. So I love that take and something that you're really passionate about as I am as well. Let's transition here in terms of, you recognize the gap in the market, and I want to hear more about how you created this compass method. Talk about that and expand upon it.
Yeah, I say I just it's really near and dear to my heart right now because I just yesterday got my final manuscript back. I've been working on a book and just finished going through its developmental edit, and so I for sure didn't create the compass method. I'd say I discovered it, and the reason why I discovered it. So one of my kind of core 4 personal values is curiosity. And the way that I define curiosity is humble discontentment. And most people are really good at asking why when they lose. I started getting really good at asking why when we won, which I think is not some. I think when people win, when the campaign goes right, I don't even think they retro it. I don't even think they slow down to distill. Why the only time people slow down is like when it doesn't work. And so 2017, 2018 timeframe, I kind of had this unique thing that happened. So little kind of peek behind the curtain here. Right before I got the Maxwell job, I had closed the largest agency deal in the history of my agency life for the agency I was working for. Sure. And that brand would have fundamentally walked away from the table if with me leaving. So in the negotiation with Maxwell, in my employment agreement, I negotiated the ability to moonlight as a fractional CMO, because I knew I was going to have to go back and work as the strategy lead on this account that I just sold. And so that's an important context, because every employment agreement I had after that, I negotiated that clause to stay in there. And so I was even though my client side job were leadership positions, I was still being a tactician in the evenings on these other deals, right? So it's in that mix of watching the organizational side of marketing growth play out and still moonlighting at night that I say I kind of discovered this compass method, because it forced my hand to really maximize the yield on my hours that I was doing for these side clients. So what happened is I started building out these pretty prescriptive, like, you must tell me all of these pieces of information before I ever even build your first campaign or write your first set of positioning or whatever it is. And what I started to find out is, so Compass is an acronym. So what I found out is like, most people had never done a competitive set analysis. They didn't even really, they kind of generally knew who their competitors were, but they didn't have like a bolted down matrix on like, here's the competitors, here's what their price is, what their offer is, what their position, like they just didn't have it. So I was like, wow, well, that's just a natural thing that I would do before I would write an offer. And then when it was time to, is your offer, the offer was whatever the founder came up with whenever they came up with the offer. Like they hadn't nuanced the offer for different advertisers. That's like, so basically, so you got offer, M is messaging, P is people, A is avatar, S is SWOT. It's like basically where are all the gaps in those 5 areas. And then the second S is synthesis. Like, how do we now make sense of what we found and actually build a plan that's going to work? So I just started running this discovery process on all these fractional clients and started getting some crazy wins of like, oh, well, when we do it this way, the next 90 days worth of work that's shippable that needs to actually happen this is how we do it. So now during my day job, I start doing the same thing. So the Compass method was sort of born, discovered more than it was created. And it was more of me like paying attention to what was working. So yeah, so now the way Herald works is the only way you work with Herald is you submit yourself to the Compass method at the beginning. Right? It's how it is what you do with us. We take you through that process. It's a consultative relationship. And then at the end of going through the Compass method, brands get to decide, one of 3 things. One is, thank you so much for this plan. We got it from here. Super rare for that to happen.
Yeah.
Second one is, we think we got it from here, but can you coach us? That happens a lot. That's my preferred kind of path forward. Third one is, we don't got it at all from here. Can you put a team together and redo it? Which is why we have an agency team inside of Herald now as well. Not our first choice. We're more consultative by nature. But yeah, so the Compass is the driving engine of everything we do. That process: competitive set analysis, offer analysis, messaging work, people analysis, avatar work, a SWOT of like where all those gaps are, and then a strategic synthesis. A strategic synthesis into a 90-day plan to basically take those gaps off the table. And so far we have about an 88-89% hit rate on people's businesses, in the next quarter being, if not the best quarter they've ever had, definitely better than the quarter before they went through the process. And the cool thing is, when my book comes out in early 2026, we're going to be able to put a bunch of case studies in there that to kind of back it up. So
cool. I love that stuff and that focus area. As you're going through that, as things are evolving and changing in marketing, as in businesses across the board, are you opening yourself up? Are you being agnostic as it relates to channels that you're selecting for these brands?
Yeah.
Obviously, you have, you were jack of all trades. You're continuing to be a practitioner, but yeah, you're probably specialized in owning select channels that you're really good at and immersed in. Are you making sure you're fixating on brands that will likely flow into this method really well, and then the channels, not necessarily always standard, but you generally have an idea of which you're going to target?
I really wish I thought about it that way at this point. No, I have not necessarily. Yes, we have channels that we're better at than others. But no, I have not thought about targeting brand. It's shame on me. No, I would say right now, I'm halfway joking. Here's the truth. I want to build plans that are 3 things. Number 1, actually what I think the brand should do, irrespective of if they do it with me or not. Number 2, actually what's going to work, irrespective of if they're going to do it with me, and actually what they can do if they did not work with me or not. Like the last thing, I think it's bull when you come in as a consultant and build a plan that they are incapable of doing on their own. Like that just feels like a bait and switch to me. Now, I think, again, because I'm trying to espouse a purpose-driven business as well, I think that we actually do ourselves some favors, because without trying, we have like a 71 or 72% throughput rate off the Compass into our agency, right? Awesome. They just enjoy the process and the thoroughness of it and the honesty of it so much that there's a bridge that's been built there that's like not easily broken. And they're like, wait, how can we keep working together most of the time? So even though it was intentional, that's kind of what's happened. But yeah, there's plenty of times that the way that the compass plays out, it ends up when I build recommendations, I call it a hub and spoke model. But essentially, I focus in on one central offer, whether it's a rewritten offer that I've rewritten or a version of their offer that's doing really well. I'm like, this is your hub. This is the growth lever for the business. And then these are the channels of distribution. These are the spokes. This is how, and those spokes are driven by the avatars that they're trying to reach, not by the company. It's where did those avatars spend their time and receive their information based on this offer. And that's how it all kind of coalesces together in that last S. And so we only do performance marketing and funnel building and messaging design at Herald. So we would only be 3 of the 6 spokes, even if those were the right 3 we would recommend. So part of our strategy has been I've spent a lot of time interviewing other Tylers of the world and Brandons of the world to find best in class practitioners in the other things that we're not ever going to do, so that when I do present to a client, they say, well, we can't do this. Then I'm always like, well, here's 2 brands in that spoke that I trust. I think you should interview both of them. And that's kind of how we do it right now.
I love that. Yeah. And just recognizing that you could easily probably sell it and say, oh, we do it all. Yeah, we'll figure it out. But you're really fixated on your reputation. You're fixated on driving quality, and you want to kind of stay in your lane. So
yeah, for sure.
Good on you to do that. Because I know some agencies out there, not necessarily a lot, but are like, oh yeah, we're full service. It's like, no, you're not. Like, no one's full service.
Like, yeah, I want to be fully transparent. When I first started Herald, I was trying to white label everybody, and that lasted about 3 months. And I was like, this is dumb. This is dumb. I'm not doing this anymore. And whoever thinks they can do this and do it well, they are wrong. Just go be good at what you're good at.
It is. Yeah. And I think I feel there is a kind of that transition around clients yearning for transparency, knowing that, hey, this is a specialty that this agency provides, but they're telling us that, they don't do XYZ, but they've got a partner. And I don't care if they white label, like, they've worked together in the past and they do great work together. Who cares? As long as it gets done. So I think that's coming on more so. And then white labeling, I'm not a huge fan of it either. So for that added transparency component, as things evolve, right? This is the acronym. Can you talk to me about how you've embraced AI, workflows, machine learning? Yeah. I imagine there's quite a bit, as we are doing a bit in terms of the discovery and synthesis and workflows that perhaps you're developing in the Compass method and after when you reach management or consultative engagements. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I would say the last 12 months has been a major build season for us. I'm very excited about agents and getting more agentic than we are right now. The best description I can say of what AI has done for us is the first couple of times I've done compasses, which I just finished building 2. I just submitted 2 earlier this week to new clients. That was numbers 112, 113 that I've built since 2017. Okay. Cool. So I've been through this process many times with many brands at this point, and I track every hour that I've ever spent on them. And I would say on average, pre-2025, compasses would take 92 to 93 hours to build. Okay. Wow. And we've done 17 already this year, and they've taken us on average 41 or 42 hours to build. Wow. And that 50 hours of time is because we have now trained 7 different research agents to go out and basically, now that you can use the web, once we get certain accesses and build our API chains in that we use, a lot of the scraping that I used to have to do very manually is done in an afternoon after an intake form is filled out, and it's put into a place where now I can go to a single screen and start my review and my understanding process rather than it is me having to go and do it. So I would say we're certainly using AI to cut down on the research frame, the research period of the Compass process. We have not teetered with, we're trying to train one to also, basically I've fed one GPT all 111 strategies that I've built now to try and train one to think the way that I think about the data. And I would say what my experience has been thus far is it can get 30 or 40% there. It can't understand the human nuance around a client's personality or like that stage of the business, or whatever some of the like the EQ dynamics are in the relationship. Yeah, it can spit out some tactics, right? Like it could do that. So I would say, and I don't think I need it to. I actually enjoy the synthesis part. This is my favorite thing that I get to do. So I'm quite comfortable with how we're using it right now. Now, would I like to use more agents in our business from a helping us get clients and prospect and maybe publish my podcast and some of the things that still feel really manual right now? I think that's like the next echelon for us, is like going over there. But I'm very comfortable. I love the efficiency wins that we've learned using AI in the Compass research process.
Yeah. Yeah. Good on you. I mean, I think you're positioning it correctly too, around a strategic partnership, right? It's not the complete output, and nor should it be. And I think that's a big point that continues to come up, is that the human element needs to be present and needs to be in a good place. And you mentioned it too, uploading 100 and plus compasses into a GPT and it's getting 40%. It does not have that nuance, just to reiterate what you mentioned. And that's the big thing. It's the nuance of perspective, and those emotional nonverbal cues too are really important as you develop that business relationship. So yeah, good on you guys.
I will say the other interesting part of AI for me, though, as it kind of expands, is like, I think I'm in the camp where I think it's going to reach a law of diminishing returns. Like, I think there is going to be some specific area of our life 3 or 4 years from now that it's like we've just accepted that AI is what's doing that part of our life. Mm-hmm. And then I think there's going to be other areas of our life and experience that AI just cannot touch. It just can't. It doesn't have a soul. I don't think it can recognize beauty. I think it can manufacture something beautiful, but I don't think it necessarily can recognize beauty in everyday life. So I say all that to say, of like, I don't think it's a fad that's going to like be here like yogurt bars were and then die a slow death. I don't think it's one of those. I think it's here to stay, but I think there is a real death to Skynet move that will happen in our lifetime at some point, where people will like cherish being human and knowing the difference, right? So I don't know. That's where I'm at with it. I'm not trying to spiritualize it, but that's kind of what I think.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, I think there's this yearning for authenticity too. And, I think, it'd be cool to watch an AI movie, but like at the end of the day, I'm like, no, I want to make sure this is like, it's like when you watch a movie, I mean, this is my perspective, but there's too much CGI and you're like, gosh, I really wish that was real. Like Tom Cruise doing his own stunts, it's got that level of authenticity that you want to, that I think people are going to gravitate towards more and more. We had a podcast the other day, and they were mentioning a Pepsi commercial that came out about a year or two ago. It was all AI, and the reviews were overwhelmingly like, this is just lacks what you mentioned, soul, and it lacks that authenticity. And people are like, I don't want to see this. Yeah. Right. So I think that's going to be a big piece that we'll see. But excellent stuff. In terms of, I know you're really elaborating, and I appreciate the Compass framework sounds awesome. And I'm already learning certain things that we want to apply to ourselves and our businesses that we work with. Talk to me about like, how do you work with leaders that are faith-based, right? And mission-driven, and you put this marketing message. Are you finding, talk to me about like, what are some of the core issues that you're seeing with these businesses? Are they can't synthesize, they can't put it into words that are compelling enough? Are they lacking that credibility with the offer structure? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I would say they don't lack zeal. They got into the business because they have zeal, right? Yep.
Love that.
And most of the time what they lack is like, I have zeal. I see the world that I want to create. I've got a very clear vision. The way I often find myself coaching them up when I'm on like discovery calls, it's like, okay, part of the way we're going to work well together is like, we have to mean the same thing when we say words. So it's like, when I say these words, this is what I mean. So like, when I say vision, I mean where you want to go. Like, that's where I'm going. I have this vision. That's where I'm going. When I say mission, it's why you want to go there. It's like, what's wrong in the world? This is why you're trying to fix it. Sure. When I say strategy, all I really mean when I say strategy is how you're going to get there by when. That's ultimately what a strategy is. And then when I say tactics, it's who's going to do what in order to make us get there by when. And so once I have that frame in place, what I find is they have a vision and they jump down to doing some tactics. And of course, they have a mission too, but what they never really slow down to do and go, wait a second, how do we take the vision of where we want to go and break it down into its parts and set milestones and benchmarks for ourselves of how we're going to grow to get there and how we're going to reinvest? And so I would say there's a bit of like a maturity that has to be developed. They just threw an agency at it, or they just threw a team at it, and they're a good communicator themselves. Most founders tend to be halfway decent communicators. And what they've also found is that not only are they a halfway decent communicator, but they're the best communicator of it in the room too, which becomes an issue because they're naturally a bottleneck at that point. So it's a lot of bottleneck removal, as I would say. It's a lot of systems building around how to know what's working and what's not. It's a lot of systems thinking around what a strategy is versus a tactic is, and how the compass actually bears out the 3 or 4 strategies we're going to do are this, and the tactical plans that now nest under the strategy are this. Just go do those things now. Just do those things. Don't do any of the rest of the other things that were like the shiny object syndrome, or you had an idea on a Tuesday and so you decided to do it. Because that was our kind of core client. We have some bigger clients than this. Our core client right now is like between 1 and 5 million, and they're trying to get to 10 plus, and they want to double. They're in like, we want to double next year. And it's like, well, if you want to double next year, first of all, you have to understand how much that's going to cost, because there's a serious cost on doubling. And it's a financial cost. It's a headspace cost. It's a saying no to things that aren't going to help you double cost too. And I think because I've been a part of that multiple times over, agency world, divisions at Maxwell, divisions at Ramsey, divisions at Ask Method, that I was at Ramsey, it's like, I've been through that jump, the 5 to 10 jump, a whole bunch. I've only done the jump to 50 jump once, right? So what I always try and do is also try and play to my own strengths of the thing that I kind of I just inherently know now of like what it looks like to systematize that. So I cheat a little bit, like I focus on getting clients that are in that stage that I know I can fix.
Yeah.
But the good news is we haven't run out of them yet. And I don't think we're going to run out of them anytime soon. And I think it's still good work, right? Like there's some people that want to be up market. I kind of want to be down market a little bit. Yeah. No,
what a great perspective. Trey, your perspective, your experience, it's you can't help but walking away from this conversation feeling motivated. And again, I'm like, God, I got to embrace the compass method. Come on, let's go. It's been an absolute pleasure. I want to get you out of here with some time to spare. Trey, where can people find you guys, Herald, and where can they engage and connect with you?
Yeah, honestly, if they want to do me a solid, I would say listen to my podcast. They're listening to your podcast, so that means they're listeners. But my podcast is called 10-Minute Masterclass. It's just a weekly 10-minute short nugget that you can use in your business to grow your business that week. And that would bless me if they wanted. If they want to look me up online, LinkedIn is the only social media platform I have, and I'm the only Trey Sheneman on there. So you can find me. I just met my first ever Sheneman with the last name Sheneman that wasn't a family member like a couple of weeks ago, and it just blew my mind. I was like, I didn't even know there were other Sheneman lines like in the world. So anyway, it's a pretty unique last name. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'll be there.
It's there, yeah, and there's a little audio so you can pronounce it. Clearly, I listened to it and then I'm just mispronouncing it. It did be a solid.
Yeah, there is. I did do that on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Trey, absolute pleasure. Really appreciate it. Excited to check back in with you in the next year or so. Excited about the book too. That's awesome. Like you got a lot to be proud of, a lot to be excited about. So thanks for your time today, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Tyler. It was a blessing. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Built to Convert. If you're serious about growth, don't just listen. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for new episodes that drop straight into your feed. Until next time, keep building.